love, caritas, is an extraordinary force which leads people to opt for courageous and generous engagement in the field of justice and peace. Now remember, he's saying love. This is following his first encyclical, Deus Caritas Est, God is love. The extraordinary force of love. And in the encyclical, he talks about justice and charity and says, in justice, we give people what is theirs. In charity, we give people what is ours. And I think it's in some ways that sort of, in a way, sums up the whole encyclical for me. In justice, we give people what is rightfully theirs. In charity, we share with them what is ours. And that kind of charity is that extraordinary force which leads us to that courageous and generous engagement. Because people of love obviously are called to be people who are generous with their time, with their talents, with their finances, whatever they can give to show that love which is ours and we want to share with others, so that, as the key to this encyclical is, so that they can grow to be integrated human beings. I think if you can keep in mind that extraordinary force and that courageous and generous engagement in the field of justice and peace. You notice that the first one was from paragraph 1 and this is from paragraph 2. I'm not going through every paragraph and picking out a quote. There's just a few here and there. But in order to understand that, and that we courageously and generously engage and give to others in charity what is ours, we first of all have to know that everything has its origin in God's love. Everything's shaped by it, everything's directed by it and towards it. So that when we know that all is gift from God, and this is where I think it follows on that first encyclical, God is love. Not our love for God, but God's love for us. When we recognize that and recognize that all is gift, then we're able to use that gift and exercise not just justice, but charity. And only in truth does charity shine forth. The truth being that everything comes to us from God, that everything is God's gift to us. That's the truth that he asks us to live by, to recognise, and we can only do that, of course, by being prayerful and reflective and taking time to recognise that all is gift. Even though we might live in a world where most people think, what's in it for me? And this is mine. The truth is that it all comes to us from God. Only in truth can charity be authentically lived. Truth is the light, gives meaning and value to charity. Remember, it's called caritas in veritate, charity in truth, in God's truth, in the truth of who we are before God, and of whom our goal should be that we help everyone to be that integrated human being in the eyes of God. So just continuing that, charity is love received and given. As the object of God's love, men and women become subjects of charity, called to make themselves instruments of grace, so as to pour forth God's charity and to weave networks of charity. That's why we need to understand that second quote, that it all comes from God. So we can pour forth God's charity and weave networks of charity. That for me is a wonderful line. I'm going to come back to that in a couple more slides on. Weave networks of charity. What do we do to weave networks of love and share with others what is ours, so that we don't end up being greedy and think that this is all mine and it's all for me? Without truth, without trust and love for what is true, there's no social conscience and responsibility, and social action ends up serving private interests. We know that it's not just about that. It is about God's love. God's love, which is that truth, that everything comes from God. Otherwise, it is just people doing something to feel good about themselves, which is fine, but we've got something much deeper that he's asking us to explore and reflect on. It's not just to serve private interests. It is that social conscience and responsibility that works for the common good, that works for all people. I'm not sure what happened there. I couldn't stop that from coming up like that. All the others just come straight up. And this again is saying the same thing in another way. If we love others with charity, then first of all we are just towards them. But charity transcends justice and completes it in the logic of giving and forgiving. So again, that's really saying that in justice we give people what's theirs, and charity we give them what is ours. Charity transcends justice, and that's what we're asked to do when we recognise that in God's love all has been given to us. Again, from just a little further on, to love someone is to desire that person's good and to take effective steps to secure it. And if we look around and think back of even just some of those things that I talked about were here in New Zealand, we think of the elderly people who can't afford to put on their electric power, or the mental health patient. You know, what sort of effective steps can we take to secure the good of those people? And it's not just the good of the individual, but also linked to living in society, the common good, because we can see some of the individuals around us who might, like Sister Honolulu gave us the example of the elderly person who doesn't put the power on. But if we think of there's a huge number of people like that, is there something we can do to challenge the system that means that electricity is so expensive? So it's not just the individual, but we look at how that good is linked to people living in society. And there might be many other things that we can do to say, well, this is what's happening that causes this. This is what causes people to live in poverty. This is what causes people to struggle and don't have the money to make ends meet, because of some of the things that some organisations, some businesses, or companies might do that are really taking advantage of people.